Dude, you are getting well.
Dude, George Bryant is one of the most highly sought after digital marketing consultants in the world. George is described by well-known entrepreneur Mike Dillard as the single best marketer in the world right now. Others describe him as the teddy bear of truth. I love that. Or the crazy bald dude with pink shoes and cool glasses. He's a dad, a podcaster, Marine combat veteran, digital marketing consultant, New York Times bestselling author, heart-centered entrepreneur, on a mission to be the best human being he can be and to help others do the same. We definitely share that vision. Unapologetically authentic, giving others permission to be themselves. He does, in fact, eat chocolate chip pancakes for breakfast, and he isn't afraid to push you to be your best self. Having helped scale some of the largest companies in the world, George is the industry's best kept secret. With his no BS approach, George is dedicated to empowering entrepreneurs just like you to deepen their love affair with their customers. Through his relationship, First Pros, a business, marketing, you will ethically scale your business in this transactional world with ease. Check out his podcast, The Mind of George. And without further ado, the one and only George the Lighthouse Bryant.
I like the without further ado, man. That was a good one. Without further ado, I'm totally here for that, and I'm so honored to be here.
That's awesome. It's an honor to have you here. I really love your bio, and I saw different parts of it that really stood out. And you're so colorful, like in person and on paper. What had you show up and say yes to this today? And first of all, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your time with me, with us, with our community. We're so grateful to have you. It's an honor.
Yeah, man. And to answer that question, I feel like I've lived like 3 lifetimes, and I'm in the 3rd one right now. And I'm still pretty young. I'm only like 30. I think I'm 38 or 39 or something like that. And I learned a very valuable lesson that when things show up, they show up for a reason. And my only answer is yes. And so I've learned to say yes and lean into the yes, no matter how uncomfortable or how much I'm afraid or don't want to do it. And I've yet to create undesirable results from doing that. And so I tend to err on the side of yes, or I'll find a way, or I'll make it happen. And then with someone like you, and your incredible story and all my internet stalking once you found me, then it was game on. And I was like, I'm in. Like, I'm all the way in at this point. So it was a really easy yes.
Oh, that's an honor. Well, I felt the same as soon as I came across you. I was like, well, this is a guy I've been looking for. Wow. You have an awesome bio and everything. How would you describe if someone says, hey man, like, what do you do? Like, what are you passionate about today? What are you up to?
Yeah.
Lighthouse.
Yeah. Bios are really interesting. I like listen to them and I like plug my ears when people are reading them. And I was like, who, me? No. What I love more than anything is making people feel like they matter. And I spent a majority of my life not feeling like I mattered. And in my opinion, the easiest lens to have the greatest impact is by taking that philosophy and applying it into business. And in business and entrepreneurship and marketing, no matter which way you slice it, at the end of the day, every single decision point is happening by a human. Therefore, we have an unlimited capacity to care about people agnostic of a credit card purchase, which is one of the laws that I live by. Like law number 7 in my marketing laws is everyone feels valuable whether they give you their credit card or not. And then I just adjusted it to everybody feels seen, heard, respected, and valuable, whether they give you their credit card or not. And I think it's easy in the world of transactions. It's easy in the world of businesses and scaling businesses and selling products and selling services to lose touch with the fact that on the other side is somebody's mother, brother, father, husband, even our significant others. And all too often, how people feel falls victim to strategies and tactics. But yet we get upset that people don't feel safe and seen, and then they don't make the decisions we want them to make. And so I'm passionate about every day helping pour into people that pour into people and letting them realize that you can build $1 billion business or $100 million business or a 7-figure business while actually giving a shit about people from like an authentic lens. And that when you do that, the results that you get are probably 10 times greater than any expectation of a result that you ever created before. And so I'd say that's what keeps me going every day. And full disclosure, it also holds me accountable to my own work, right? Like through the trials, the tribulations, stories like yours, my own addiction, my own, shadows, they don't just disappear, they get integrated every day. And on those days where I don't want to get out of bed, or my wife is mad at me, or I'm not necessarily being the best father, it's my pull to that holds me accountable, that drops me into, wait, if I do this for the world, I have to do it for my family. If I do this for the world, I have to do it for myself. And it does very, very deeply hold me accountable to continuing to try to live up to the foundation that I've set. And it keeps me going pretty consistently.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I also know that you're a really successful entrepreneur. Not only are you heart-centered, you have a lot of achievement at what you do and measurable success, mastery of hours and a lot of people you've helped. When you were a little kid, I'm going to scale you back, drop us back now.
Let's go.
When you were like, man, when I grew up, I want to be like a famous podcaster and like heart-centered entrepreneur and make sure I'm in the Marines.
Yeah, that's not the dream. The dream when I was a kid was I want to survive. I had a pretty rough childhood: drug abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse. Social services was involved in my life from 12 on. Tried to emancipate caseworkers, 2 welfare checks a day from the cops, homeless, 13, 14, working at 11. And the only goal that I had as a kid was to make it out and not end up like everybody that was before me. And I don't know why, but at a very early age, when I saw my parents making the choices that they made, and I've done a lot of work around this, so I've forgiven my parents, but making the choices and being addicts and living that life of chaos and the abuse, I couldn't decide what I wanted to do, but I knew I didn't want that. And so it gave me a goal and a target, and I worked my entire teenage years. And then I actually forged my parents' signature when I was 17 to join the Marine Corps, because my brain didn't go anywhere except one day I saw a Marine in uniform, like a recruiter came to the high school, and I had the easiest job in the world for them, because I was like, that looks hard. That looks like it will help. And I need to prove to myself that I can do this. And I literally walked into the recruiter station. I was like, I want to join the Marine Corps right now. I was like, don't talk to me. Don't do whatever. Just let me sign. And it was to escape. And I will say that up until probably 32 years old, my entire mission in life was survival. And I just changed the flavor. It went from childhood to the Marine Corps, and the Marine Corps was in combat. And I lived those same behaviors as a kid until I got out of the military and started doing work on myself. And I will say that probably at 35-ish years old, for the first time in my life, I was like, I think I know what I want to be when I grow up. And I think I'm going to start doing this thing now. And so, yeah, it was a really interesting journey and perspective to get here.
Wow. Thank you for being so vulnerable and open about that, and about your childhood. You mentioned survival. How did you survive up until the time you got out of your house?
Yeah, hindsight's 2020, so it's easy to reflect back on now and look at and see. But I was blessed in that there were 2 very important families that I met at a very young age who had kids that I was best friends with, whose parents never asked questions, always supported and loved, but also never dug too deep and enabled me. And I'd say that I had a deep enough drive to see that there were things that were possible. Like through them, they were very successful. They lived this life. I had no idea how they got there, what I was going to do, but I was like, my life doesn't have to be this way. I didn't know what it could be like, but I just had this fire in me at a very, very young age. I mean, I had a paper out at 11. Then at 12, I lied about my age. I had a paper out and I was a skate guard at the ice rink. I would yell at people for going too fast and I could go as fast as I wanted. I was a little hypocritical. And then, 14, I started working at Dunkin' Donuts on the night shift and the early morning shifts. I'd work before school and after school. And I just had this deep desire to have a purpose, like something that wasn't survival, that wasn't, am I going to get hit? Am I going to be hungry tonight? Am I going to have somewhere to live? And quite frankly, most of my drive and tenacity came from insecurity. It wasn't from this place of like, I know this is possible. It was that I think there's another way and I don't want to die. So I want to survive. And so I used that as fuel, very unhealthy fuel when you turn into an adult, by the way, just for the record. But it did get me out. And I think I was just blessed by seeing a few key figures in my life, a few teachers that I still talk to this day, 20 years later. They listen to my podcast. We DM on Instagram. Like there were these few key figures that showed me that there was a life different than the one I had, that showed me there was this way that I could go about it. And quite frankly, joining the Marine Corps is one of the dumbest things I ever did. Like I'm super proud of it, right? I did 13 years as an active duty Marine. I should have joined the Air Force or the Coast Guard, right? I made it really hard on myself, but it was exactly the path that I needed to take. Because I'll tell you right now, I remember July 29th of 2002, standing on those yellow footprints. And I was like, what am I doing? And every day for like 50 days at boot camp, I'm like, I want to quit. I don't want to be here. This is the dumbest thing ever, blah, blah, blah. And I think I had that mentality most of my career. I'm like, why am I doing this? But there was also this other part of me that never quit. And I was like, no, I made a commitment and I'm going to honor that commitment. And I'm not going to check a box. I'm going to give it my all. And it was through that I really feel like I developed resiliency and presence and being able to navigate extremely stressful situations, combat, deployments, things like that.
Dunkin' Donuts. Man, I made the best donuts ever. Tom Brady, when he won his rookie, the MVP, the first time he won the Super Bowl with the Patriots, he lived next to the Dunkin' Donuts I worked at. And he came through the drive-thru at like 3 a.m. and I was baking and we weren't open yet. And he drove up to the window and asked me to open. And I opened and I was like, I'll make you whatever you want. And I made him what he wanted. He hung out with me for like 30 minutes, gave me a signed jersey. But I made some killer donuts and chocolate chip cookies and bagels at Dunkin' Donuts. But yeah, I can't say you're really into combat and you chose it for 13 years.
13 years. Yeah. So my whole goal is that when I was growing up feeling like my whole life was in chaos and shambles and I joined the Marine Corps, what I really loved deeply was the structure. Like there wasn't an option. I didn't have to think. I was told where to be, when to be, how to be. And there was this part of me subconsciously that liked that structure. And so I didn't heal any of the trauma. I just changed the wrapping paper to the exact opposite of what I grew up with. And my whole goal was I'm going to do 20 to 30 years. I'm going to retire and then I'm going to hand out smiley face stickers at Walmart. Like that was like, and I'm not joking. Like I wish that was a joke, but I was like, if I do 20 years,
what's wrong with that? I mean,
I'll get a paycheck for the rest of my life. Right. Yeah. And I'll have enough to live off of, $4 or $5 grand a month. And then I can just be and exist. Like there was no family plan. There was no marriage. There was no kids. There was no nothing. And that was my goal. And I made it to 13 years. And then I was medically separated because I got blown up one too many times is the joke. And so I almost lost my legs in 2005. And then I had 7 concussions in a 2-year span from blasts. I had bleeding on my brain, fluid on my brain. And then you stack that on top of the PTSD. And they were like, hey, it's been fun, but you're no longer a valuable pawn on our chessboard. So have a nice life. And when they started my med board, my butthole puckered up about the smallest it ever been because my entire life plan went out the window. And then that's when I kind of accidentally became an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I guess you can't make that shit up.
Nope.
That was not what you're thinking about as a kid. And yet I'm thinking, wow, you know, there's so many people I've met in addiction recovery. Like, I've been attracted to the military, including myself. Even I was attracted to prison, I think, because of the structure too. I was, and yet there was war, like there was chaos. And I think you kind of learn how to survive amongst the chaos. In
Yep.
fact, that almost, I get the sense, I don't know what it was like for you, but it sounds like for me that became more familiar than a peaceful, loving environment. And so the shift, even though I craved a peaceful, you know, being the guy passing out the stickers, I kept attracting so much unworkability and drama and fighting.
Yep.
And I realized that was learned behavior. So I see you going down there and then getting all the way to getting blown up beyond usability for government, you know, for whatever, for all intensive purposes here, which is also, you were actually the second guest on here to say that, who was also a Marine,
Yep.
who was also had no other choice. I mean, basically to die or to try to get help, couldn't find any help. And he became a psychotherapist. His name is Adrian Marquez. He has his own therapy center in the South where he works with combat veterans and then I met another combat veteran on the plane, actually, on the way home to Chattanooga. And she shared that her boyfriend had just died and she was about to move in with him, and she was 25 and all she knew is how to shut down her emotions. And for whatever reason, she felt safe enough to share with me. And, you know, still saying, like, I thought I could be in here long term, but I realized I really need to help people and I need to, like, I guess take care of myself now, right? She's going to go to nursing school. Also Marines, right?
Yeah.
So I'm interested in, and all of her family are addicts. That was the other thing.
Yep.
And she had been helping everyone in her life, including her mom who had MS. Her name's Teresa. She's an amazing, amazing human. So I just want to send her some love because of what she's going through right now. And she got it by the end of our plane ride that the gift underneath all of this grief was that for the first time in her life, she was being forced to let other people care for her. And she said that was probably scarier than the actual death.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that
Yeah,
resonate with you and some of your story?
for sure. So I'm gonna tie two of these together. What you just said and something you said prior. When you said prior that, you know, the chaos was a comfort zone, right? Like we knew how to not only survive but also thrive. Like one of the reasons I'm so good at speaking off the top is because as a kid, it was a tactic for safety. If I could manipulate the situation, if I could say things a certain way, if I could be on the spot and very, very reactive to navigate the game, I could get food or get a house or not get hit or dissipate a fight. Well, when you're an adult and you carry that into the world and you're a master manipulator at a very young age, and then you're addicted to chaos without recognizing it. It wasn't that chaos kept finding me. It's that I kept creating it because it was my comfort zone, relationships, friendships, business deals. And the reason I would create it is because I refused and I didn't have the gusto to ask for help. So instead, I would create chaos. I would get people really mad at me, including my wife. I would have massive blowouts. And then the moment it escalated to a point where I was no longer in my comfort zone, I would break down and surrender. I didn't know how to surrender actively or proactively. All I knew was how to surrender when I was empty. And so I would create chaos to the point where like it would just drain me to the point where all I had left was tears, because there was so much compartmentalization for so many years that I didn't know the key to that door. And so instead, I would create situations around me that by design were designed to blow up. And when they blew up, it meant so did all of my compartments. But then I would go to complete breakdown, and I would spend months in breakdown, in tears and deep depression and sadness and going back to opiates and everything in between, until I was, as a 33-year-old man, able to recognize the pattern and start having help around me to realize that, yes, number one, I didn't know how to ask for help. Number two, I didn't realize that I was even capable of feelings. I remember telling a therapist back in like 2014, I said, I don't know why anybody bothers. I'm destined to be like this. I'm a damaged human. I have an inability to feel, and all I am is numb. And she looked me dead in the eye and said, numb is a feeling. And it broke every paradigm and every wall that I'd had built up, and started to help me bring awareness to where I was shutting down and what I was creating. But ultimately, all I ever wanted was somebody to help me. The reason I told my stories and was so intimate with the details of what happened to me, including things that people should not know, was because secretly all I wanted for them to say is like, hey, can I help you? Because I didn't know how to use those words. I didn't know how to say, hey, Ben, can you help me? Or, hey, Ben, can you hear me for a minute? Or, hey, Ben, I'm feeling shut down. I'm feeling lost. You know, I didn't know how to do that. So instead, I would create chaotic environments until they broke me. And then the people not only would then be in one of the worst situations of their life, I was basically gaslighting them into anger. And then they're the ones who are getting hurt. And then the moment they get hurt, I surrender and ask for help. And it's like a double-edged sword on the receiving end. I'm going to hurt you, and then I'm going to ask you to help me because I didn't know how to communicate. And it was bad. I mean, it was bad.
Well, how did you get out of that? You said you had this awareness one day. Was it just like an epiphany? Had you been reading something that, can you put your finger on it?
I can. My wife left me. I can. 3 times, by the way, for the record, you know, and I'd say, like, it's funny when people read my bio, they're like, this is who you are. I'm like, no, it's not who I am. I'm like, today I'm like a C+ husband. I'm an A- father. I'm a B+ entrepreneur, and I'm working on getting it better every day, but every day is different. Right. And it's work and it's integration. And what had really happened is that when I started having people bring awareness to my behaviors, rather than doing the work, I would learn the lingo to then manipulate the situation. I could speak personal development. I could speak consciousness. I could speak NLP. I could speak 12 steps. I went to every meeting and knew the game. I knew all of it. And so all of that had my toe in the water, but never me in the water. And it was all the surfacey stuff that finally everybody around me were like, we're done. Like, we're just done with you and done with you. And then I'll never forget, I even went so far to go to an experientially based personal development course, similar to Landmark, World Works, Gratitude in Florida, based on LifeSpring. And it's 3 different parts. And I went so far to do the first part, the second part, and then I did the 90-day leadership part, to the point where all I wanted to do was learn the game so I could win. And I missed the whole point. And I was like, I enrolled more people than you. I did whatever. And one of the instructors looked me dead in the eye at the end of like 5 months of this work and said, you think you're all that matters, but what you failed to see is the trail of dead bodies you're still leaving behind you. And
wait, hold on. I need to be with that for a second.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
And she knew exactly what to say. Thank you, Lisa Kelman. That resonated true to me, losing Marines that I cared about, that I tried to keep and tried to save, and then tying it into where I was doing the same thing, except I was intentionally not bringing people home with me because I was running them over. And that's where like the bomb was dropped on me. My wife left me, and I got to really sit with it. And I had to make a hard decision. And here was the decision. I had already attempted to take my life. I'd overdosed. I had no intention of waking up. And by the grace of whatever it is, whatever you want to call it, God, the universe, the Almighty, everybody has different names. I just call it God to make it easy. I woke up, and that morning I woke up, it took me 6 hours to realize I was still alive. Like, I thought I was gone. Like, it felt, because I had so much relief in my body from like being done. And so when all this happened, what I ended up at was, okay, cool. The number one step to any part of my life and health and healing is integrity. And I'd been operating for 33 years lying to myself, telling people that I didn't want to live, but yet I was too chicken shit to die. Right. And I was toe tapping on both sides because I knew after that day, I didn't want to take my life. And it was a very big piece of cognitive dissonance that existed for me for about a year, where I would make decisions and actions like I was aligning to take my life or not be here anymore. But yet when I would sit alone, I knew I was lying to myself because I was never going to do it. And I was never going to go through it. And I had to sit with that and sit with that and sit with that. And then finally, I had a massive breakthrough in a breathwork practice, just breathwork. And I broke and listen, and I'm gonna set the context. I've sat with Mother Ayahuasca 16 times. I've done MDMA assisted psychotherapy. I've done psilocybin. I've done ketamine. I've done breath work, silent retreats, everything. The breath work session was the most powerful experience of my life. And the only thing that it unlocked in me was this ability to stay in alignment with my integrity and stop lying. And so instead of me saying like, I don't want to live anymore, I'm so depressed, I started saying, I do want to live, but I feel so bad that all I can think about is taking my life and I don't know what to do, but I'm not actually going to do it. And I started having deep levels of integrity with how I spoke and when I spoke, which helped me and allowed me to eradicate the shame and the guilt and the fault and the blame the more that I practiced that muscle. And then I was given the gift of sitting down with a shaman and a psychotherapist and doing MDMA assisted psychotherapy. And one treatment changed the entire trajectory of my life. All my PTSD gone, all my shame gone, my sexual trauma gone. Not fully integrated, but I could relate and exist with them without the feelings in my body that allowed me to love myself and feel something. And I remember it was probably the first time I cried in like 7 years. And when I cried, I mean, I cried for like 4 hours. And it wasn't like a pretty cry. Like I'm talking snot, dry heaving, like everything imaginable. But at the end of it, when I got it all out, I realized that I'd been holding this weight my entire life. And the only prison that existed was the one that I was keeping myself in because I didn't share. I wasn't being authentic. I wasn't being honest with myself and the people around me. And so, yeah, I've read hundreds of books on personal development and the power of positive thinking and everything you can imagine. But the ultimate core for me and the big shift was the day that I decided and committed to living in integrity, whether I liked the results or not. When I was given feedback about this is how you showed up, rather than denying and gaslighting back, being like, you're right. And I don't know what to do, or I don't know how to do it, and started flexing this muscle of integrity because I didn't have it for most of my life. I was always afraid that if somebody didn't like me or I did something wrong, they would leave me because that's my core wound. That's what happened in my childhood. And so rather than being honest, I was this shell of myself that was a massive people pleaser through manipulation. And then I was upset that I wasn't getting results or I didn't feel full. And it's just simply because I was operating from the wound, not from myself. And, you know, I think any modality or any tool is the tool as long as we have the intention to use it and not hide in it. And I got to learn the lessons the hard way, like I used to always do, which was like, you can't learn personal development. You have to be personal development. You can't go do breath work. You have to be breath work. You can't walk into yoga and get the results without doing yoga. You can't walk into the gym and look at the machines and expect them to create a result. And what I say now is that if every day I just pick one thing, one book to read, one practice to do, one stillness practice, one breathwork practice, even if it's only 5 minutes a day, I can put my head on the pillow at the end of the day and be like, today I made progress. Today I integrated more. Today I had the hard conversation. Today I recognized shame. Today I found more guilt. And keeping an integrity with those has probably been the single biggest needle mover in anything that I've ever done. And I've probably invested personally over 7 figures in therapy alone out of my own pocket. And I'm talking the best in the world, everywhere you go, hypnotherapist, CBD, CPT, EMDR, prolonged exposure, MDMA, still, I mean, all of them. And now if I could shrink, 10 years of work or 12 years of work and down into one, it's actually the ethos of my business, which is I trademarked relationships beat algorithms, but the most important one you have is with yourself. And it's the one that we refuse to spend time with. And that's basically where I derived that I built a business to hold me accountable to what I teach and so that I can live it and be it. And so that's a long answer, but I tied it all together, I think.
Yes, you did so beautifully. And yes, I really want to acknowledge that you that you have built something that holds you accountable to that, and how vulnerable you've and honest you've been in this. It's really been profound to me in a way that I see only in, I mean, those are the people I'm attracted to, right? Even the leaders that are willing to admit that, the most successful people. And I appreciate that you said, you know, you just try different things. And it reminds me of going to acting school when everyone, I got into NYU on an acting scholarship, and I got into the Lee Strasberg Theater too. And it sounded like the most prestigious and well-rounded, and it was embodied, but actually really kind of got in my head. And I remember everyone arguing about whose theater company was the best or the best method and all of that. And then I started doing embodied experimental theater work and mask work, which is really from like the neck down and all kinds of different stuff. And I realized, oh, we just have to do it works for us, but it's also can be so important and beautiful just to try different things and throw yourself into different things. And if it's not working, try something else.
Yes.
Right. And then I also heard you ask for help, the willingness to do that, and that you had assistance and professional guidance.
1000%.
You spent 7 figures, but you actually sought out people who are, highly sought after, respected professionals in their field, including the MDMA assisted psychotherapy, including sitting with Mother Ayahuasca, including those things.
Yep.
And I want to give another shout out to that because Adrian, who I also had on the show, in his work, this is some of the stuff he's saying are the only things that work, is integrating these things, not just doing something, but, working on integrating a lot of the same therapies you're talking about. So I'm really excited to hear that because, I believe that veterans are some of the least cared for, taking care of people in our nation. Mm-hmm. And that there's a huge opportunity to serve our country through mental health now, and through just acknowledging these, and that a Marine, a veteran, can access healing and therapy that works.
Yep.
And that there's other guys out there doing it.
Yep.
And that even if you've survived and you're alive today, there's still an opportunity. Still the first day of your life.
Yeah, because like here, I think there's an important part of that it took me a long time to recognize, but I realized that the biggest enemy I have is between my ears, because in between my ears is not me. Yeah. It's not me, right? Yeah. It's either ruminations of the past, worst case scenario, limbic system taking over for survival. And I realized that probably 95% of my challenges came from trying to lock the key and keeping it in here and not letting it out here. And if I had to give full credit to absolutely the one most powerful thing that anybody can do, it's never try to do it alone, because it is a guaranteed rumination cycle, and rumination is the root of all resistance. And so when I think about it, it's like even in the morning, right? Like I give this example all the time, but it's so funny to me, like when I walk into my office in Austin, right? And someone like says good morning, and I always watch, and they're like, good morning, how are you? And I was like, great. And they're like, how are you? I'm like, honestly, I'm exhausted, but I'm happy to be here. I didn't sleep and I'm a little anxious. And they're like, whoa. And I was like, well, you asked how I was. Like, I'm not going to say good, because maybe I'm good, but I don't know. There's a lot more there. And I think in this world, like, I love social media. I love phones. I love the connection that we have, but we have to realize that by default, they are designed to commoditize our attention and give the illusion of connection. And it's only when we use it intentionally to create connection that we get the results. And that's not from liking and everything's good. It's from everyday practice. There's an incredible book I read called Radical Honesty a long time ago. And practicing that from a place of integrity with ourselves. Like, it's okay if I ask you how your day is and you said, I'm having a hard day. It's okay if you're sad. It's okay if you're happy. It's okay if you're fucking high on life and dancing on the moon. Like, great. Like, I want to celebrate with you. But the most important part is that what we say matches how we feel, not what we think, how we feel. And I think that that's a very, very big component, because the isolated journey is the one that's guaranteed to lead to an undesirable result, because the only place it goes is ruminating in the same circle. And I will say that if I think of every big moment in my life, from beating addictions, and I was bulimic for 15 years as well, right? Like I've been through all of it. And the two correlations are every time I tried to do it alone, all I did was suffer. And then every time I was honest about how I felt and told anybody, I got support and growth. And it's really easy to see with me in hindsight now. And so now I try to hold myself accountable daily to living on the right side of that coin, where it's like today, like no joke, I'm not joking. When I said I'm a C- husband, like today I'm a C- husband. My wife is not happy. She doesn't feel seen. She feels like I'm disconnected and checking the boxes and I'm not doing things that fill her bucket. And in that option, in the last 3 days, I have two options. Option one is believe that that's true, take it personally, and then beat myself up, self-sabotage, and then think it's this complicated thing. Or option two is hear it and say, wow, that's feedback for how I'm showing up. And you know what the hardest part is patience, because you can't fix it in a day. It requires intentionality and honesty and transparency. And so I sit here saying that I may be a C- today, but I have every freaking intention of being an A+ by tonight, and again tomorrow, and again tomorrow, and again the next day. And understanding that this human experience is not linear. And the most beautiful parts come when we feel that range. And as much as I still, to this day, with the work that I've done, I still struggle at parts of that range. I still struggle when my shadows are up and I don't know how to coexist with them, or it's a different flavor of a behavior. But it's my willingness, and I can only speak for myself, it's my willingness to dance in that shadow and to experience that full range that also creates the big up and the big win and the momentum that comes. And it's something that I practice daily. It's actually like, if I could give everybody a practice right now, like this is probably one of my most powerful practices that has single-handedly done more for me than anything else. And there's two levels to it. I'm going to give you level 1 and level 2. So I have a boredom practice, and it is of everything I've ever done, it is the most powerful one, because I tell everybody that we tend to neglect the only relationship we're guaranteed to spend the rest of our life with, which is ourselves. And when attention is the number one traded commodity, everything around you is designed to take it from you and not give it to yourself. And so I practice boredom every day. And so I start my morning with at least 15 minutes of boredom. I pick a spot to sit, whether it's inside, outside, but there's rules. There's no phone. There's no music. There's no anything. Like I'll sit on my porch and I'll just watch the squirrels. I'll watch birds. And when I'm done, I can't write anything down. It is a muscle of flexing being. 10 to 15 minutes a day. And the goal is to get to an hour, to where you can exist with yourself, agnostic of anything around you. And you can just be. You can be present. You can be with your thoughts. You can be with your feelings. Oh, there's a bird. I've been thinking about the bird too long. Oh, there's a squirrel. There's the squirrel. Wait, how's my body? How's my breath? And it's just a practice. That's level 1. Level 2 is you add a stethoscope that I'm holding up in my hand right now. And you practice the same practice, but you do it with your eyes closed, and you start to flex the muscle of your internal body. And I will tell you right now that I could take a gander of a guess that 99.9% of people hearing this or listening to this have never sat down with themselves and just listened to their own heartbeat with a stethoscope. And if I had to give a get out of jail free card or a red SOS button to save me when I'm in emotional breakdown, when I'm crazy, when I'm angry, when I got anything going on, the moment a stethoscope goes in my ear and I hear the absolute gift of my own heartbeat, it is an immediate reset switch back to presence and existence. And so it's something that every one of my students, every one of my 7, 8, 9-figure entrepreneurs, my business partners, like we all do this, and I flex this with them. And I'm like, sit, just stillness, nothing to do, no agenda, nowhere to go, no phone, try to take a shit without your phone on the toilet, like wherever you want to do it. Find that spot and start flexing this muscle of being and existing with ourselves, because it really is an inside out job. And I feel like it's the most powerful practice that I have.
Yes, I love that. I love everything about that. I'm going to take that on. So I just had the awareness yesterday, like my phone is just pulling me.
Yep.
And even my meditations are with my phone, staring at my teacher on my phone, and even with my eyes closed, I can't wait to open my eyes and see him there looking at me on my phone,
Yep.
hearing it so well from my phone. And I've learned to take in the nature sometimes. So I really, really, I appreciate that reminder.
Yeah.
I'm really going to take that on. I love exercises and challenges like that to give people. Our audience is going to love that today. So thank you so much for
Yeah, man.
sharing.
And the where that came from, by the way, just because context matters, I was with a very wise shaman in Costa Rica, and I feel like people will resonate with this story. And it was when my wife left me, and everything was in the shitter, for lack of better terms. And I went down there, and I was like, I'm going to spend 7 days in silence, and I'm going to figure out who I am, what I want to do, blah blah blah. And by like day 3, I was more frustrated than anything. And I went to the shaman and I complained. And I was like, I'm miserable. I don't know what to do. Why won't you just tell me what to do? Like, tell me how to be a good husband. Tell me how to be a good father, right? Like, give me the boxes to check. And he looked me dead in the eye and he said, you've never been quiet enough to hear God's whispers. And it cut through me like a knife, like a knife. And he's like, I want you to just sit, take a notepad and a pen and paper and write down one question. And the question is, what do I want to do? Who do I want to be? Or why am I here? And he's like, and I want you to sit until you find an answer, and you'll know when the answer comes. And 2 days later, the only thing I wrote on the pad of paper was to stand with structure in the face of resistance to create possibility. And that's why my branding is a lighthouse, because of what I wrote on that paper. And the only reason I found that saying, the only reason I'm as successful as I am, the only reason I have what I have is because I sat long enough to listen to God's whispers. And that was single-handedly one of the most pivotal moments of my life. And, you know, you think about it, right? Like I tell people that get massages. I was like, everybody who gets a massage is the same. And I'm totally compartmentalizing and putting a blanket statement, but everybody is excited about the massage because they're like, yes, I'm going to relax. I'm going to get good. Right. But then the moment you lay on the table without a phone in your hand, the anxiety comes. What about this? I didn't do this. I didn't have this. I didn't go there. Right. And it's like 10 to 15 minutes of like mental purging of all that stuff. But then the most beautiful thing happens. At some point in that massage, it all stops and you just exist. And when you get off that table, the state of being in your body is very, very different because that was a forced container of presence. But rather than, and I'm totally down if you go get a massage every day, 7 days a week, go for it. Like, go for it. But in lieu of that, intentionally starting our day or the pockets of our day and starting from home, which is us, and plugging into whatever that is. And it's okay in that stillness practice. If you feel anxiety, give it a name, give it a cup of coffee and say, good to see you today. We got stuff to do, right? But it's really this pure window into you that's going to give you the greatest chance of success, because now you understand what vehicle you're operating that day, what its quirks are, what it needs, what it gets to do. And it gives you this space to practice this presence that literally changes the game.
Yes, this is great advice. You heard it here. And I heard I was muted, so thank you, Facebook user, for letting me know. We're really excited about that exercise. And George, you mentioned something that I've been burning to ask you for the last 20 minutes here, because it really stood out to me. And I would love to hear how you answer this. So a client of mine who's actually an internationally, he's an award-winning bodybuilder. He's differently abled. He is exceptional. He's a coach. He's a personal trainer. And at one point he asked me, you know, he was asking me about vulnerability and how much vulnerability to show on his Instagram reels. And I said, well, some of my favorite coaches, if you just listen to my, podcasts and the people I interview, really like tell one on themselves, like really lay their shit out there sometimes. Like you mentioned, you brought it back, the C+ husband thing. What would you say to a client who's like, God, what if I'm afraid to be this honest with my clients, or I'm afraid to be this honest. I won't be successful if I'm this honest about what I'm really dealing with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an incredible question, and my answer is simple: you won't be alive until you do. Because at the end of the day, if I'm changing how I show up to change the perception on the receiver's end, I'm not being me. I'm just living a lie. And there's nowhere in any shape or form that fills a bucket of love, acceptance, compassion, gratitude, joy, or anything, because there's always this undertow of dissonance being created. And there's an internal battle that's there. But I think there's an important caveat to this. And this is a lesson that I learned. There's a very big difference between intimacy and vulnerability. And I put authenticity in the bucket of more vulnerability, right? Like I can be authentic and intimate with my wife. But when I come on this podcast, if you go listen to podcasts I did 7 years ago, 8 years ago, I would share the explicit details of my sexual abuse because I was still living in it. That was not authenticity and vulnerability. That was intimacy with details trying to change the narrative. And I think there's a big part, right? And when we think about that, it humanizes everything, as including ourselves. It gives us the ability to not be this perfect persona or this Instagram life or this model citizen, right? But really what ends up happening is it creates true freedom. Because if you're constantly living in integrity and documenting and sharing how you are, nothing can be done to you. Nothing. There is no alternate narratives. There is no people thinking they have a way. There is no, oh, are they going to catch me? Or is that, no, it's just true freedom.
Am I going to be canceled?
Am I going to be
I
canceled?
actually
Right.
speak my truth.
Right. And then the truth is like, if I had to change that question, I love to ask coaching clients questions in response to their questions.
Yeah.
And I'm like, amazing. Right. Like, here's where I go. Right now, the people that are following you are not following you. They're following the shell of you. And if something happened to you right now, are those the people that are going to be there to take care of your family? Or are those the people that are going to disappear because they figured out who you really were? I want to know that if I leave this office today and God forbid get into a car wreck and I'm no longer here, I don't give a fuck about how much money I made. I don't care about who shows up to my funeral. I care about who and how long shows up to support my family when I'm gone. And the only people that will do that are the ones that truly know me. Not the shell, not the stories, not the accomplishments, not the labels, not the New York Times bestseller, not all the bullshit measurements that carry no weight in the actual existence of the world, but the ones of like, he's honest and he shares his feelings. And I truly trust him at a deep level because he's authentic. Like those are the people that I want around me and that I align myself with, which is why I deleted my social media when I had 1 million followers and started over. I deleted it.
I didn't know
Gone.
about that. Yeah.
Gone. I got off social media for 3 years because I was living a lie. And when I came back, I told my team, I'm like, I don't care how many people we have. I care about how many relationships we have. I want real people. This is me. This is how I live. I am not perfect. I am by far from perfect, but I have a commitment to do this work every day. And integrity, in my opinion, and even more importantly, self-integrity is the only true key that unlocks the door to freedom. And then if you practice that and you do that, there's no way to lose this game, because I would rather lose my business and have myself than have my business and not have myself.
Thank you. That's beautifully said. That really resonated. That hit me hard. So, and there's a lot of great feedback here from our guests and listeners here live. And I want to thank you so much for being a guest here, George. I have a few final questions before we go. Do kind of a lightning round.
I'll shorten my answer. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. I want to honor your time as well. There's so much good stuff here. So it's a great opportunity. I mean, I want to go back and listen to this. So I hope if you're listening, you do the same. And you can listen to this, and you'll be able to, by Monday, we're going to release this everywhere you stream your podcast. And if you're listening now or in the future, thank you so much for being here and part of this. And George, this has already filled my heart so much. Thank you for sharing it with us so vulnerably and beautifully. Okay, so you mentioned followers. What is your number one business strategy aside from just, connecting authentically from the heart. What's your number one strategy to gain new clients, new followers, to gain new new clients? Let's just leave it at that.
I love this question. So relationships are an actionable thing. They are not passive, and they do not happen by design. And nobody in this world owes us a relationship. We owe them the bridge to create and invite them in. And what I see right now more than anything is a sense of entitlement that just because I make good content and I post good content, that people should like it and engage with it without me doing any more. That is not how relationships work. And so when I say that, what I mean is that your content's incredible. That's 1% of the game. The other 99% is proactively finding the people who you can serve and being in relationship with them. And I will give a tangible example on Instagram. Okay. Tangible example. You might post an image on Instagram and get 111 likes and 6 comments. Okay. Mistake number 1, people don't respond to comments. So what happens is you just condition somebody that if they resonate with your content and they take the time to engage, that you're not going to take the time to acknowledge them back, which dissipates the number one human foundational principle, which people want to feel seen, heard, and respected. And so if somebody takes the time to comment, guess what? They owe us nothing, but we owe them everything. We take the time to respond. If 111 people liked it and didn't comment, that's 111 people that raised their hand that's getting weighted to be in a relationship. Click on every single one of their profiles and go to their last images and give authentic engagement. Don't ask for anything. Don't do anything. Go fill their bucket. Watch what happens a week later when you're getting 100 comments a post. And then the third part is when you're done in your ecosystem, right? Because one of my famous sayings is you have to feed the children you have before you adopt any new ones, which means if there's people liking and commenting and you're not responding, you're not going to get any more. So take the time to feed them and then be proactive in relationship building. Find people in similar niches, find hashtags, find content, and go authentically add value and engage. And you know what happens? They'll find you. They'll follow you. They'll message you. They'll DM you. But relationships require leadership, and leadership is a proactive decision. And so no matter where you are, no matter what you do, no matter how good my podcast isn't going to grow itself. It doesn't spread itself. It's up to me to spread it. And if I want people to listen to it, I need to find people, add value in their life, and create an entry point that makes them wanting to listen to my podcast, not let me disseminate this on 86 platforms and hope and pray that this resonates and somebody comes in, because nobody owes us anything. And so I akin all marketing or tactics or strategies to real life examples. And I know that if I opened a store in downtown Manhattan and all I did was put a sign in the window, not many people are going to come in. But if I go out on the street, I'm like, hey, Ben, how are you today, man? How are you? And I don't even talk about my business. You know what's going to happen? You're going to ask. You're going to come in, but it's not agendized. It's connection. And most people try to go to the agenda first instead of the connection first. But when you go to the connection first, the agenda handles itself. And so it has to be proactive.
Love it. Thank you. If you had one superpower, what is it?
My number one superpower is seeing people at their potential and lovingly holding them to it.
Beautiful. What is your daily routine for self-care?
Yeah, I love this question. Yeah. So I break my daily routine. I call them the sacred lightkeeper quadrants for my students. There's 4 areas. There's mind, there's body, there's being, and there's business. And so I'll give one from each one. So in the mind, every morning I wake up first and I do my stillness practice for at least 10 minutes. And then I journal in the being section about the man I want to be today. I am a loving, passionate, giving husband. I am a honest, integrous, compassionate man. And I pick 3 for the day. And I write them in my journal somewhere between 1 and 30 times. And then the moment I feel it, I move into the being. I wake my kids up. I make them lunch, make them breakfast, get them out the door, drop them off at school. And then when I get to the office, I don't open any messages, no Slacks, no emails, no Facebook messages, no Instagram, until in the business component, I do my work, which is learn 1 new skill a day, up to 20 minutes, whether it's read a book, listen to a YouTube video, and then immediately implement it, and then do my 3 big needle movers for my business for that day. And so only when I am done do I earn the right I just lost my word. Do I earn the right to interact with the outside world? And so everything's an inside job until I've earned the right to get into the outside world. And so that's how I start my morning. I have a requirement that I move my body at least a mile a day, right? So whether that's walk a mile, whether it's run 3, it's that I just move. I get at least 5,000 steps in a day. That's my minimum. And then, so in the mind, I have the stillness practice in the morning. And then at night, I have the mind off part, which use the 5-minute journal, something like that. But what I try to do is close all the open loops so that I can rest and not still be in my business, right? I close the loops, I write them down, and those become the 3 things I do tomorrow. And then in the being, it's about really aligning myself. So I have an alarm that goes off on my phone 3 times a day. And it says it in the alarm section of my phone. Are you currently doing the thing that's going to move your needle? And are you in alignment? And I check in. Who is the man I am today? What am I doing? I take a couple breaths. And then in the body part, I sleep, I eat good, I drink water, I move my body. And then in the business part, I just intentionally consume only up to 20 minutes a day to learn something specific. And then I implement it into my business with my needle movers. And I say this to my students all the time. I say this to my friends. In my opinion, the easiest way to win as a business owner is earn the right to consume. If you spend 90% of your time consuming and 10% of your time creating, you're building somebody else's vision. If you flip it and you spend 90% of your time creating and 10% consuming, you're building your vision. And that's where the keys to the kingdom are. And so that's kind of how I structure my day. It's not rigid with time, but typically I don't start any work until 10 a.m. and I work from maybe 10 to 3 every day. And it's all designed around that. It has built-in stillness time. It has built-in breathwork time. But I'd say the most important part is bookending my day in a tight container, that it starts with me and it ends with me. And so that means stillness, alignment, clarity. And then at the end of the day, forgiveness, self-love, gratitude, write things down, figure out the parts of the day. And those have been the most powerful ones for me.
Thank you so much for those. Yeah, those are great. My wheels are turning. If your life were a Hollywood film, what would be the title of it?
Unveiled.
Nice. And if your wife wrote it, what would the title be?
That's a good question. Believing in possibility.
Oh, that's one of the more positive answers we've had from the spouse section today. I love that. Who would you cast as your parents in this film, if you could cast anyone?
Just because I want him in a movie, Keanu Reeves would be my dad.
That's great.
And then who would I be as my mom? I'm gonna go with Charlize Theron. Because watching her embody roles and change her body and her mechanics and her behaviors to align to the role that she's in, I feel like could have a very big testament to the life that I lived.
Do you have any secret hidden talents?
I tied the world record for a standing box jump in 2010. I can jump really high. Yeah, I'm only 5'7" on a good day, and I jumped 58 inches onto a box, broke the record, and then it was broken a couple weeks later. But yeah, I can probably still touch the rim, but I don't know if I can dunk right now. But yeah, I can jump pretty high.
Wow. All right. If you could wave a magic wand and give the world one gift today, what would it be?
Gratitude.
And if we all had gratitude, what do you see us all doing?
We would all have presence and realize that what we have is enough. And it would allow us to create more from a place of connection, not lack, not undercutting, not manipulation. And it would bring true presence to, in my opinion, the meaning of life, which is connecting with every other human being that we can without an agenda or something to gain. And I feel like the deepest practice for me in that is gratitude.
Thank you so much for that, George. And thank you again for being here, for sharing yourself so generously. And thank you for everyone who's listening. Please subscribe. Please share this. Spread the love, spread the medicine. Follow George the Lighthouse Bryant. I've posted his link to his website and his podcast here, themindofgeorge.com. Be sure to check that out. George, I'm so grateful for you today.
Man, this was a gift. This filled my bucket more than you know. Actually, you know what? Fuck it, I'll tell you. My bucket was pretty empty today as a C+ husband, and connecting with other men that do the work and have walked the walk and talk the talk like you. It's an honor and a privilege. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart for giving me the space, but for asking and for getting yourself to a position to be able to do this and to create these conversations, because it really filled my bucket. So thank you.
That is received as well, brother. Thank you. Well, have a beautiful day, everyone. George, would you be willing to give us a dude, you're getting well?
Yeah, of course I'll give you a dude, you're getting well.
All right, let's hear it.
All right, dude, you're getting well.
Nice. Thank you so much, everyone.